This is One on One. This man needs no introduction, but I'll try it anyway. He is Peter Max. He's an artist. He's a pop culture icon. He has painted for 6 presidents. His work is in museums all across the world, and it is an honor to have you on One on One here at the Tisch WNEP Studios.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for
nice
joining us.
Nice to be here.
You've been painting for how long?
My whole life. You know, I grew up in Shanghai, and my father used to love to draw, even though he had about 5, 6 retail stores as a business, but he used to love to do it. So I drew with him. My mother thought, that's what she told me later on, that I loved it, you know, just doodling. So she found an artist on the street corner, and she asked him if he can come and teach me how to draw. He says he can't, but he'll send over his daughter. So the next day, the girl shows up, and I didn't find out until I was about 5 or 6 that when I was 3, she was 7. So a 7-year-old girl came over with a stack of paper, wow, pens and brushes, and I was with her till I was 10 years old. When I was 10, she was about 14 or 15.
Right. We
left Shanghai, and still today I miss her.
You know, talk about the Shanghai experience, because in prepping for the show, it describes what, physically, what you lived in. Describe it.
Well, we lived in a beautiful city, Shanghai, where I just was about 2.5, 3 months ago, right, where my pagoda house was, where my parents, you know, my father was successfully a beautiful pagoda house. The streets were still there. Tongshan Road, Shushan Road, these were the streets. But instead of my house being there, a 75-story building was in its place. I couldn't believe it. Yeah. I was looking around, maybe I wasn't able, how would I recognize even some of my Chinese friends? Possible.
But your artwork started so young, and your parents were very supportive. How did that support manifest itself?
Well, my mother probably had like some creative stuff in her. My father used to doodle a little bit. And when she knew that I liked drawing, she got me stacks of paper. And she just do whatever you want. And when I got this little nanny that helped me how to draw when I was 3 and she was about 6 or 7 or 8 years old, she said, just do silly drawing, silly. That's the best way for anybody listening to teach your children how to draw. Just do silly stuff. Don't even look at the paper. So what happens, you are then training your wrist to do different things. You know what I mean? And by doing that, the skill comes.
Well, Mr. Max, that's not really fair, because not everyone can develop what you did. So the question is, when did they know? When did you know? When did it become clear that there was something really special?
Well, when I was already 3, I loved it. So we drew more. Then this little nanny came in, and she still also did the silly stuff with me, and I did that. And every once in a while, do something you want to do. So I do a house, or I do a tree, then I get some more silly stuff. And so what happens, I trained my wrist to how to do all these things. And by the time I was 18, I always thought I would become an astronomer.
An astronomer.
An astronomer. I had this unbelievable, you can't even imagine, interest, which I still have today, about how big the universe is, the planets. Because I once met a guy who was an astronomer when I was about 7, 8 years old, and he sat on a park bench near my garden where we lived, and he was an astronomer. So he said to me, do you know about the moon? I says, no. Do you know about the sun? No. And he told me how the sun is 1 billion times bigger than Earth, and the moon is maybe 1/4 or 1/7 the size of Earth or whatever, you know. And it was hard even for a little kid to get it, and I got it all. It was unbelievable. And I was going to become an astronomer, but then my friend took me to art school at the 57th Street and 7th Avenue, the Art Students League, and I studied with Frank Riley. I learned how to draw and paint. And then I found out within 2, 3 weeks of being with Frank Riley that he was a student in the same classroom with George Bridgman, where he was now teaching me. And who sat next to him for 7, 8 years? Norman Rockwell. Young Norman Rockwell and Frank Riley studied together in the classroom. Rockwell became Rockwell,
yes,
and Riley became a teacher, and I became a student.
The other great influences on you, describe some of them, because I want to show some...
You know, Picasso, Monet, Chagall, all the other artists.
Right there, by the way.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, when I paint, this is Rembrandt. When I paint, I don't know what I'm painting till I paint it. Now, when I do Rembrandt, I know I'm painting Rembrandt, but most of the time when I do something, it's just any old thing. And it's just moving the arm, and, you know, it's like when you're in the street, you're humming. You don't know what you're going to hum next block, right? You're just humming a tune.
What do you mean you don't know what you're going to be doing?
I don't. I just love the action of putting the brush in the paint and putting it on my canvas. Then I answer it with another brush stroke, another one, and then I know how to make something out of it. But it's not like I walk up to the canvas and say, I'm going to paint such and such. No way.
But devil's advocate question. You've been connected to Taylor Swift recently, and you've been doing some art. I want to say commissioned, asked by.
No, no. When I do Taylor Swift, then I'm doing Taylor Swift.
Well, you answered my question.
Yeah, and if I painted you, it would be you. But when I'm not painting you or Taylor Swift or another person I'm painting, and I just want to paint for me, I pick up the brush. I've got 76 colors on the table, 76 jars from where you are to me.
Right.
Beautiful big jars. I pick up the brush. I don't know what color I'm going to pick. Suddenly I'm picking up a little bit of red. I put it up here. Then I answer it with a little bit of yellow. And before you know it, I'm fabricating something I like. And before you know it, maybe it's a vase with flowers. It's abstract. And I love that freedom. It's
That book that you brought in.
Yeah.
Could I-
This is the best-selling art book in the history of Abrams books.
Talk about it as I hold it.
Well, open some pages if you feel like it.
Sure.
It's got everything about me. It's already in its second printing. They sold like 200,000 books. But further up are,
Sure.
you see this
Let's take a shot of this.
That's Toulouse-Lautrec.
Try this one. Bob?
Toulouse-Lautrec, who I always admired. And then I put his name in his hat. See it? You can read it, right?
And when you were doing this, did you have a plan on this?
Yeah, when I see, it's like this. Sometimes when you're taking a walk, you know where you're going, right? Because you're going someplace to meet somebody. And sometimes you're just going for a walk. You don't know where you're going. Same thing in art.
Can I try this one?
Yeah, when I drew that.
Bob Morris, our director, and our great team in the control room.
See, when I drew this, I didn't know what I was drawing. Move the page in a little bit this way so you can see the nose. But I drew a planet and another big planet and something the size of Earth with a big sage behind there, you know, and I just loved where I went with it. But before I drew it, I didn't know I was going to go.
Blank canvas, you did not have a plan again.
Right. So I sometimes know what I'm doing, and sometimes I don't.
Okay, this is a big one. This one, and by the way, you go back to the, you're talking about the cosmic piece of it. You've been, your art is influenced by your interest in astronomy.
In astronomy, correct. Now, when I did this, I didn't know. I had these stars, and I had cut them out, and I placed them. And then I found this little angel I loved, and I put this angel up there. And then I colored it up. But I could tell you when I started, I didn't know what I was going to do. I didn't know I was going to do a whole field of stars, and I didn't know I was going to put an angel up in the universe when an angel needs air.
Making a living as an artist.
Yes.
You know, there are a lot of folks out there, well, I don't know if it's a lot, but some people who want to do it and are not making a living doing it. What advice do you give to those who say they want to make a living
in
as
art?
an artist?
Well, draw a lot, paint a lot, and create some connections in the art world. Find people who could. What I did when I was much younger, when I was in my early 20s, even 19, 20, I started drawing, and I didn't know if I was going to be an astronomer or not, but I started drawing. I met a guy who loved my art, and he says, Peter, I can get it into a gallery. I said, oh, that's great. The next thing I called him up, hey, find me another gallery. And then I found more people who could put my work in galleries, and suddenly I had a slew of maybe 5, 7 people who were sort of agents of mine who put me into galleries, into museums, and it ignited in me much more excitement to draw and paint.
Yeah, you got me thinking about a question that I do ask. I was going to say successful artists, but most not as successful as you. Not just when I say artists, I mean people in the theater or whatever they do. Creative people. Better way to say it. And some of them say they don't think about the business. They don't think about the marketing. They don't think about putting themselves out there. They just want to do the art.
Yes.
And I often think to myself, boy, what a luxury that must be. Because for those of us who do this, we have to think about the business. Do you think about the business?
I have to admit, I think about the art. I think about drawing and painting. I thought of thinking about being surprised what I paint because I don't know where I'm going sometimes. But I also think about, oh, this guy's very talented. He sold my work. Maybe I'll let him represent me. And sometimes I make the right decision and sometimes wrong. But I have usually made the right decisions. And I have my work in close to 1,000 museums worldwide.
1,000
museums. It's like, I can't even believe it. I wouldn't even know. They gave me a list that's maybe 20 pages long, maybe 50 pages long of all the museums. And I've seen about maybe 20 museum shows of mine that I wasn't involved in. Usually I'm involved in the museum show. They're going to give me a show. We send them 200 works and they make a big show. And every once in a while I find there's a show in Poughkeepsie or there's a show in Arkansas and I happen to be not far away. We go and see it. I go, where'd you get the work? He says, well, it was donated, it was given to me, and it's unbelievable.
What's it like for you? Well, I was going to ask what's it like being in that situation, but the 6 presidents, explain that part to me.
Well, what happened is I used to know Ronald Reagan before he was president. I once, listen to this, walked down the steps from the Metropolitan Museum, and up comes opposite me a gentleman whose face I recognize. I go, oh my God, it's Ronald Reagan. And as I see him, he sees me and he goes, Peter Max? I said, yes. He says, I own 35 of your works. How are you? Oh my God, how are you? So he gave me his number. Next time in LA. So I didn't go to LA for another 6 months. I'm very young. This is like many years ago. And one day I'm in LA and I dare call him. And
Excuse me, was he an actor or a governor of...
No, he was just an actor.
Just an actor? Okay, I'm sorry.
And so the next time I meet him and he tells me I'm up at 62 pieces. And I couldn't believe it. Then one day he runs for became the governor.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it. And then he became the president of the United States. I couldn't believe it. And one day I'm walking down the circular stairwell of I have a duplex, and Mimi, my assistant, says, Peter, it's Nancy Reagan. I go, get out of here. I pick up the phone. Hi, Peter, how are you? Do you know the president is going to be in March or in July 4th? He'll be already 4 or 5 months in the White House, January, February, March, April, May, June, right? July 4th is a big holiday. And do you still paint the Liberties every July 4th? I said, yes. I says, you know about it? Of course, the president knows everything you do. She says, aren't you up to 6 this year? I said, yes, because I started in 76, 77, yes. 78, 79, 80, 81 was the first year, but it was a total Liberty,
yes.
the body. And she says, would you paint it at the White House? And I said, I would love to. So we fly over there, and we bring 6 empty canvases. I have 3 assistants with me. They put them up. I had lightly penciled in so they all would be the same height.
Yes.
And I'm painting away at the White House. If this is the White House, that's the garden. And I'm painting away Statue of Liberty for Ronald Reagan. And suddenly there's 4 wide and maybe 100 deep soldiers marching around the White House lawn. And they suddenly stop in front of where I'm painting. And they open up 2 here and 2 here. Out walks Ronald Reagan. He goes, hi, like this. And he comes up the steps. And he says, you're painting 6. I love him. I love him. Oh. And you mind if I put a stroke? He was looking at my paints. I said, he puts a stroke, and I had 2 brush strokes like this. Yeah. He says, where? I says, copy that stroke. So I had 2 here, and he made another one like this. It matched. I still have that painting in my studio, 1 block from where we are.
Well, you honor us by being here. You honor us by sharing that story. And you've had an incredible career. And I wish you nothing but the best and success in the future and good health.
Thank you,
Mr. Max.
All the best to you.
Same to you.
Thanks.
That was wonderful.
One-on-One with Steve Adubato has been a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating 25 years of broadcast excellence in partnership with St. Joseph's Healthcare System. Funding has been provided by Meridian Health, Wells Fargo, Qualcare Inc., NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, Cone Resnick, NJ Best, Berkeley College, and by Verizon Communications. Transportation provided by Airbrook Limousine, serving the metropolitan New York, New Jersey area.